TCI is brought to you by Escandarea, the most dominant 3-year-old this decade. Seeing is believing at eskyonthego.com.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Triple Crown. I'm John Siegel alongside Joel Cunningham. Well, we've made it. Derby week is officially upon us. Even though, Joel, we've been over at Churchill since last Friday getting a first-hand look at these contenders, and we've gained some valuable information.
Fun times, John. You always learn a lot in the couple weeks leading up to the Derby. You know, we've watched these horses all around the country all year long on the television. Now we finally get them back here at Churchill Downs. At least most of them. We haven't seen all of them yet, but we've seen most of them to this point. And you know, you really can learn a lot about a horse, in my opinion, leading up to the Derby. Now, you can get paralysis by analysis too, so you know, be careful of what you hear in terms of first-hand accounts. But I always like to see them in the flesh, John, to see if if a horse is thriving or maybe going backwards. And I always like to see the way they handle the track. Now, that becomes even harder with the conditions that we've had the last couple weeks. We've been lucky to dodge rain in terms of early morning workouts. You know, we thought we'd have some sketchy mornings, might move back some workouts, John, but we haven't had that. We've dodged that, but we've had very cold weather in the mornings. When we had, this morning was 75 degrees, so we've had some weather shifts, and I think the track, it has really played a part in the track, particularly with the rain that we had Saturday night. Everybody remembers the Derby trial. Sunday morning, we kind of had a muddy kind of a peanut butter type track, but I think it was the fastest it's been. And I think we've had some very loose tracks, very cuppy tracks. So trying to evaluate these final workers and to try to take into account the track surfaces of when they work. You want to see who's getting over it, and you want to try to make sense of the works based on the track condition.
All right, last week we compiled a panel of experts for you, and we had a lot of fun with Ray Paulick and also Ed DeRosa out at Keeneland. Let's take a few minutes and finish that up. As promised, we're going to talk to you today about the Trini Berg factor, and we'll also talk to you about the all-important post position. Let's talk about the post position. This is a huge one every year. Nobody wants the rail. It seems like it's the curse. But there's been two post positions that have won the most derbies. The one is the 5-hole. Can you tell me the other one?
Obviously, it's the rail, because every year there's somebody that starts from the number one post position. Since the Derby fields have gotten so big, and I'd have to go back and look, but it probably started in the 70s. The one post position has not been good, and the reason for that is they come out of the starting gate and they almost run straight into the rail at the top of the stretch, because it's with the main gate and the auxiliary gate, it's so wide across the track. If you like the number one post position, go back and looking at Lucky's race 2 years ago and see how that worked out for him.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, looking at Lucky's a prime example. Yeah. Here's a horse that I thought was the best horse that year. So I said, they all need a little luck. Big Brown won from the 20 hole. I'm going to go with Looking at Lucky. I mean, it's a terrible mistake. The horse had all kinds of trouble. It was a no factor in the race. So, no, I definitely agree with Ray there. The rail is not where you want to be. And another interesting stat is, since 1900, from the 17 post to the 20 post, I think only 3 horses have won the Derby, so and Big Brown being one of those horses. So how would you view Al have another if he drew the 20 hole?
Honestly, I wouldn't love it, but I think he'll be the type of price where I couldn't throw him out completely and want to be talked off based on a pill pull. But given his jockey and his experience at Churchill, that would add a little bit to the nerves. I mean, here's a guy who's going to ride in a 20-horse field for the first time in his life in front of this many people at a track he's not familiar with. That position going into the first turn is pretty much everything, other than if you have horse turning for home, you want a clear run. But certainly the 20 would make me worry a little bit given the jockey. But 15 to 1, I wouldn't be scared off too much because of a $30 mutual, but I wouldn't love it.
Another hot topic surrounding Kentucky Derby 138, the Trini Berg factor. Ed, this horse seems like he's going to inject a ton of speed into this race. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I expect him to be on the pace early. The question to me is when Bodemeister and Hansen make their move, is it after half a mile, is it 3/4? I would certainly think they'll want to be engaged with the leader by the time they hit the far turn. The thing I haven't heard a lot of people talk about is how Trini Berg affects those behind him, because I anticipate he'll be on the rail since he'll be on the lead. And if you think he's going to back out of it, then what does that do to those horses like Take Charge Indy, who Calvin Burrell will be on, and people expect him to be on the rail? Do you give up position because you're going to have a horse back in India and go wide, or do you try to hang on as long as possible and find a seam? I think it's going to be a real interesting cat and mouse game among jockeys.
How do you view this, 3/4 time, 110 and change? Do you say over or under on that?
110 and change, I'd take the push. I think it'll be 110 and 4. And, you know, if Hansen can do that and then come home half a mile in 51, he could win the race because that's 201 and change. So he's a big threat. I think Trini Berg actually helps him if he can relax behind him.
Just 110 and change, open it up for the closers. I mean, does that make a fair race in your eyes?
I actually don't think so. I think it could hurt the closers if the pace is at that level because they're going to be too far out of it to catch up with a horse like Hansen or Bodemeister. I do think it helps the second-tier horses I mentioned earlier, like Take Charge Indy. He could be one where if Calvin Burrell has him in position behind the three we've talked about, he can make a big move. And Union Rags, too. We saw him do it with Julian Leparoux in the race he won this year. A similar trip here could get it done as well. But the deep closers, I think, are in trouble under this scenario.
Special thank you to Keeneland, Ray Paulick, and also Ed DeRosa. Thanks, guys, for coming on the show. Joel, before I let you go, first-hand opinion, who do you think looks the best at Churchill?
Yeah, this is where the rubber meets the road, John. In terms of our opinion, everybody has an opinion on the way these horses look and the way they're working and handling that track, John. In my opinion, obviously Union Rags is a gimme. We'll just move on. We'll put him number one. We'll move on to the next one because everybody knows that. Daddy knows best. You're only going to see him under the lights. And he's kind of becoming a wise guy horse now. I'm not sure if he's good enough, but boy, he's a big, physical, strong-looking colt, and he is thriving right now for Steve Asmussen. Daddy knows best looks good. And now I'll have another from California. I mean, here's a horse that I've been slow to warm up to. We've watched him train the last 2 days. He's had some very spirited gallops. But more importantly, he looks good physically, John. You know, there's a whole issue with him being on the vet list in California or not. He looks very sound and very healthy right now. I think the horse looks tremendous.
All right, this is all important, you know, not just the physical, but who can get over the track the best? Who do you think's handling this track?
You know, John, Union Rags, again, I love the way he handled surface the other day. Now, I caused a little controversy on Twitter because I said when he came off the track, you know, he got a pretty good blow that day, and he certainly drank up. I think he had, you know, well over a bucket of water, and a lot of people, you know, said, oh, this horse isn't fit. No, every horse we saw come off the track Saturday, because they're expecting rain, they didn't get it. So the track crew had that track extremely loose and cuppy. It was not nearly as watered as we thought it should have been because they were expecting rain, John. So it was very loose and cuppy, and we saw a lot of horses get tired. We saw Doulahan in a maintenance work get awfully tired coming off the track. Eden's Moon, I mean, I can name several of them. So here's a horse that just looks great right now, John, and I love the way he got over the track. I mean, he's such a good traveler. He was throwing them right out in front, and just doing it effortlessly. I love Union Rags.
All right, there's a horse that you think looked good over the track, even though there's a lot of controversy around him. Real quick, it's Creative Cause. Joey's going to be one of the favorites.
Right.
He was washed out today on the track. But you think that he handled the track well?
I thought he handled the track well. I heard a lot of people complaining about him. I heard one guy say, hey, that horse is lame. I didn't like the way he went at all. Came off the track lame. You know, I didn't see that, John. I did go back and catch him taking a bath and cooling out. He looked like he was tracking fine to me, John. I mean, here's a horse that, you know, he's been trained by an old school trainer, Mike Harrington. I love the way he breathes 47 a day. I mean, in terms of the way you just evaluate how he's handling the track, how he's getting over the track, I thought it was effortless. I mean, I love the way he got over the track today. So Creative Cause is a horse that caught my eye in a good way, but you'll probably hear from other people who did not like the work.
All right, thank you, Joel. We're going to talk more about these contenders later in the week. Make sure you guys stick with us. We'll have several special editions of TCI, and you can also follow us on Twitter at TC Insider.